Hello guys and welcome back to Big Brother Review, and we've got a lot to unpack. There's been a lot that's happened over this weekend. It's currently Sunday evening. I'm recording this before watching the latest episode, and I gotta say there's been so much that's happened this weekend, and I'm gonna try and cover all of this as best I can. There is a little bit of a disclaimer for this episode, obviously, because of everything that's come out about Trish after she left the house. Um, Everything that I sort of say is in response to how I was feeling at the time. Obviously, having learnt new information, obviously things have changed, but how I'm feeling at certain points in this video is going to be how I was feeling at the time, not necessarily how I'm feeling right now. Just thought I'd make that very, very clear before we dive into this episode. There were some very, very interesting conversations that happened in this episode. For one, Chanel and Trish kind of made up. They kind of had their conversation. They sort of sorted their differences out, and I felt like it was very sort of civil towards them, civil between them towards the end. It did kind of frustrate me that Chanel was still kind of peddling the excuse of, oh, well, you can't like assume that what I said was about you when it was very blatantly about Trish, and that was something that really bugged me about Chanel, is that she never had the balls to just be like, yeah, no, I was talking about you, I'm sorry, but that was how I was feeling at the time. Whereas like Trish obviously noticed that very, very quickly, and that's what happens, unfortunately. I thought it was also quite telling that after this conversation, Chanel went back to Jenkin and kind of was still quite bitchy about it, and it was just like, you're not really helping yourself here, and yeah, it is frustrating. It is frustrating to watch, I gotta say. There was a really, really lovely Christmas tree conversation that happened in the bedroom once they woke up. I think Olivia was talking about how they normally have two trees and then one fake tree, and Jenkin was like, "Oh, we just get the same fake one down every year." It was just very, very light-hearted and humorous, and it was nice to see sort of like both sides of the divide slowly healing. I feel like this episode is going to bring everyone back together, or this eviction is going to bring everyone back together, which is going to be really, really interesting to watch for the final week. But yeah, there were some other really lovely moments, like when I think, was it Noki and Matty? No, Noki and Henry singing the Big Brother theme tune just in the kitchen, and it was very funny. And also there was a conversation between Chanel and Jordan about just food that they liked, and they were talking about like turkey dinosaurs, chicken nuggets, things like that, potato smiley waffle faces, things, you know what I mean. So there was a lot of really, really lovely moments from everyone in this episode, which I thought was much appreciated. And yeah, I gotta say, it was quite an entertaining episode. I watched it with my friend. She's only seen the first episode of Big Brother and then this episode, and it was a bit of a shock for her because she was like, "Oh, where have all these people gone? What? Who's this?" to Jenkin, because obviously Jenkin was so funny on the first night, and then she was like, "Oh my god, he is just miserable now." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." Although I gotta say, they did Jenkin solid in this episode, because there was a lot that he was sort of making jokes out of and laughing about, but then there was his usual just sort of sulking green hoodie moments. Do you know what I mean? It's time to talk about Big Brother's Big Barn, and we saw this sort of challenge teased on Late and Live, and I gotta say, I have no idea what the point of it was, but it was quite entertaining to watch Noki and Matty. That's where I was getting Noki and Matty from. As they were dressed as wolves and everyone else was chickens, and the the foxes, sorry, were blindfolded, and they had to try and find the chickens in the barn by just feeling around for them, which was so funny. I gotta say, they did a better job of it than I thought they would. I really thought that they'd sort of get away with it, but they managed to find everybody but Chanel and Tom, which was, yeah, I didn't expect those two to be the ones to survive the longest, but they did do a good job, and that meant that they won a luxury sort of takeaway from a peri peri chicken place, which had to be Nando's. But I thought it was such a great prize because, oh my god, if I was in that house and they were like, yeah, you could get a Nando's, I'd be like, yes, absolutely. Yes, please. Give me all the food, please. All of it. Every single last bit. Because, oh, I love Nando's so much. So yeah, that was a good challenge prize, I thought. The challenge itself was entertaining, but it did seem a little bit pointless. And then it was followed by another challenge, which I thought was, again, what was the need for it? But this time it was bingo. And they had a little bit of a spin on bingo, which was quite funny. Jenkins was obviously the bingo caller, and every time he called out a number, they had to do something in order to like tick the number off. So rather than just sort of dotting it, they had to do something. So the first thing they had to do was I think swap clothes with another player, and so Olivia and Tom swapped clothes. Everyone else kind of went, yeah, no, fuck that. Which was quite funny seeing seeing Tom struggle to put on Olivia's like leggings was so funny. The next one was being asked. Everyone was asked the naughtiest thing that they've done, and Yinren said that she hadn't told her grandma back in China that she had a boyfriend, and her grandmother was shocked when one day on FaceTime she saw Luke getting out the shower. That's Yeah, that is quite funny actually. That's so hilarious. I won't lie, that is a good story. The next challenge that they had to do was eating a chili. Jordan kind of smashed it actually. He did really well, but Olivia did not. And she was having to guzzle that milk. Oh my goodness, it was so funny. And then she started like spitting the milk everywhere because she was laughing. Oh, it was a nightmare of epic proportions for Olivia, I won't lie. She was she was trying her best, but sadly to no avail. And the last one was, I think, like they had to do a dance party or something like that, and the best dancer won. But apparently I think Trish was holding a soup like pot over her head and was dancing with it, and there was actual soup in it, so they gave her the win for that one. And then somehow Trish won overall. I feel like there was a lot of missing content that we didn't see, but obviously this is an eviction episode. They can't be showing us our usual hour of interactions. But the prize for the bingo was, I think it was ice cream actually, and I gotta say, I'd have rather the Nando's. I'd have been like, get me some Nando's, please, because no, I want my Nando's. I don't want ice cream. Oh yeah, but I'm also a person that's like, I like vanilla ice cream, and that is it. So I'm boring like that. So yeah, I thought it was a good challenge, and it was very entertaining, and the housemates did sort of let loose, which was very entertaining. But yeah, two challenges in one episode. I don't know how I feel about that. Feels a bit cheap, won't lie. Henry and Tom had a few interesting conversations throughout the episode, and they're a pairing that I have actually never seen before on the screen, which was so funny because I was like, they've had two very serious conversations in the space of one episode, but I haven't even seen you guys interact in the last 5 weeks, which was crazy. The first one was about how I think Tom was saying he hasn't cried in like a couple of years, and then like he made himself a promise to like be more emotionally available in the house, which I feel like he has been. He has been crying a lot, especially when Paul left. He was blubbering. But I just thought it's very interesting that he was like, yeah, I just didn't cry. I just didn't cry. And I mean, without going into like the whole toxic masculinity, men don't cry bullshit, like that's very much what it sounded like. And I very much sort of went, oh, okay. That's all he's got to say. Cool. Henry was also talking about how he gets a lot of backlash for like being like posh and how people make preconceived conceptions of him because he's posh. But obviously, once they get to know him, they realize that there's more to see, which I feel like is the perfect way to describe his time on the show. Like, he walked into the house and I thought he was going to be a bit of a wanker, but he's genuinely been a delight to have on our screens. Apart from like a couple of times where he's put his foot in it, saying stuff. I think, I think he's been all right, but like, there's been a couple of times where he has really put his foot in it. There was also another conversation about love, and Tom was talking about how he got pied off, and decided that he didn't want to sleep around anymore, which was actually quite an endearing conversation. And I gotta say, the more that I'm learning about Tom, I hate to admit it, but the more I'm starting to enjoy him on the show. But I feel like too little too late. How are you waiting until the final week for you to like finally start endearing yourself towards me? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's taken 5 weeks of you just being at times quite spiteful, other times very, very boring, to be like open, honest, and have a conversation. I don't know. It just, oh yeah, it's really annoying. I won't lie. So it's time to talk about the evictions, and I gotta say, it was a surprising outcome. I gotta say, the first person evicted was Chanel. I fully backed that decision. I thought that out of the 5 people that were up, she was the one I wanted to get rid of the most. And like, from what I saw of the exit interview, because I was at my friend's house, we didn't get to watch the whole thing. It was good that the judges were sort of holding her accountable for some of the sort of behaviour that she exhibited in the house. And I think she was just genuinely unaware of how she was coming across and how she was sort of treating Trish, which, I don't know, it just, like, maybe she was just completely oblivious, but that's how it came across afterwards. And I also thought, like, it was an inevitable result. I don't think many people wanted to save Chanel. I think there was a group maybe that did, but like, I feel like when it gets to 5 weeks out of 6, it sucks to see anyone go, but also they made it 5 weeks and you've had 5 weeks of content, so like, it's not the end of the world. All you're missing out on it is a week, which isn't like horrendous. If they were lost like week 1 or week 2, yeah, fair enough, I would be sad, but I've had 5 weeks of Chanel, and I was kind of glad to see her go in a way. Although I gotta say, let's talk about the reactions from the audiences. Chanel and Jenkin, boos. Olivia was a bit more of a mixed response. There was some woos, there was some boos, and then Trish and Noki were cheers. And like, when I tell you that everyone was chanting Trish for the win, Trish for the win, Trish for the win, we were sat there like, oh my god, they, like, because we were like, who are they going to chant to get out? But somehow they managed to come together and chant Trish for the win. And I gotta say, the look on her face was glorious. And then she was announced as the next person to be evicted. And I think it came as a shock to everybody. Like, maybe not sort of like Tom, Jenkin and Olivia, but it came as a shock to everybody else in the house. And it came as a shock to the presenters, because before they cut AJ's mic off, you can hear her, I think she was the one that announced the verdict, you can hear her say Trish, and then you hear her go, what? And then obviously the mic cuts out. But I don't think anybody was expecting it. I certainly wasn't, especially after she just received sort of Trish for the wins. But then again, there's been a very, very vocal group of people, especially on Facebook and some on Twitter, that don't like her. And so I think it was unreasonable for us to expect her to survive 3 evictions. She's been up 3 times now, 3 weeks on the trot, and she survived the first one. I believe she probably scraped past the second one because everyone really hated Dylan and Paul. But because there was so many options for this one, it was inevitable she was going. I kind of made my peace with that. I was gutted when she left because I was like, damn, this is like, we've lost like someone that like I really enjoyed seeing in the house. But yeah, it's probably time to address what happened over the weekend. And it's difficult. It's difficult for me to comment on it, and I'm just gonna comment on it objectively. I'm not gonna condemn. I'm not gonna, um, sort of, what's the other word? What's the opposite of condemn? Sort of. Anyway, uh, uh, Trish's Twitter account. Um, People have obviously gone back through historical tweets that she's made, some dating back to 2012, some dating earlier, some more recent, and they are, for want of a better word, pretty derogatory in their sort of in the way they speak about different races, different ethnicities, different sort of sexualities and things like that. Um, and it was a huge shock, I gotta say. Like, Friday night, everyone was behind Trish. Saturday night, this was when the tweets were leaked, and it's tough because I don't necessarily believe that the Trish that was tweeting those kind of things is the same person that we saw on Big Brother, but that's all I can say on that topic right now. But so obviously that's why the disclaimer was at the start of the episode, and I just thought I'd bring it up as well, just so that everyone's kind of informed. But other than that, that is the end of our episode, and I thank you guys very, very much for watching. I'm sorry that this episode was late, but hopefully tomorrow's episode will be on time. So thank you guys very, very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye now. Keep on ranting.